As your practice grows, it's so important to be able to stay organized and keep on top of things, especially when it comes to documentation, filing insurance claims, keeping appointments straight, and getting reminders to people. Well, there's a great solution for all of that, and that is TherapyNotes. TherapyNotes is the leading electronic health record system for mental health providers. It's who I use in my practice. And so go check them out today, therapynotes.com. And if you use the coupon code Gordon, just GORDON, you can get 2 months free. So check them out today, therapynotes.com. This is the Practice of Therapy podcast with Gordon Brewer, helping you to navigate your private practice journey. This is session number 125 of the Practice of Therapy podcast. Hello, folks. I'm Gordon Brewer. Hope you're doing well. Hope that you're staying healthy and well during this period that we're in, and hope that life is going as well as it can go for you. This is your first time joining the podcast. Welcome. I'm glad you're here, and glad you've discovered us. If you're coming back for more, glad you're back. Glad you're a part of me on this journey. So glad for you to hear my guest today. I've reconnected with an old friend, John Clark. And John and I was on John's podcast, the Private Practice Workshop, last week. And so we kind of did back-to-back episodes with each other, just kind of trading off. And so, we got kind of deep in our conversation, which was good, and which I was kind of following a theme from the previous week's podcast with Jane Carter. But we just talked about some important stuff that I think is important for all of us to think about. I know I'm hearing the same theme with my clients, and that is just really feeling kind of, we're at that place where we're kind of through the adrenaline rush of this whole COVID-19 thing. And I think a lot of us are just really kind of getting weary. And so one of the things John Clark and I talked about, and looking forward to you to get reacquainted with John Clark, because he's really, again, one of those people that just has a lot of wisdom and a lot of great ideas about being in private practice. But anyway, we have this conversation just around knowing your why. And so looking forward to you hearing from John in this episode. Real quickly, before we get started, though, with the interview, is want to make you aware that through the rest of the month of April, I've got all of my courses on my Teachable platform. Just if you go to practiceoftherapy.com and go to the top of the homepage there, you'll see a button that says courses or online courses. And if you'll click on that, that'll take you to the Teachable page. And if you'll use the coupon code Spring 2020, you can still get all of my courses at half off. And so I want to invite you during this period to take advantage of that. I realize that right now is a time when we've got maybe a little extra downtime on our hands, but also giving people kind of a little bit of a break on those courses. The two main courses that are there are G Suite for Therapists, and that is a course that's really kind of designed to take you through learning the various tools of Google G Suite and how you can apply them to your practice. And G Suite is the suite of tools and applications that you get when you have a Google account. And more specifically, and I'll let you in on a little secret here. I've been working on a new course, or an update to the current course that I've got. It's really going to be kind of an add-on course about using systems and processes in your practice using Google G Suite. And what I was going to say is G Suite is really the proper definition of it is that G Suite is the paid version of a Google account. And so I got that clarified in my head yesterday. And I know you've heard me kind of throw around, the paid version of Google G Suite, but that's kind of redundant. G Suite is a paid service from Google Cloud specifically, that just offers a whole lot more tools. And the most importantly with G Suite is that you can make it HIPAA compliant because Google will provide you with the BAA. So you get all the tools that you're familiar with Google. If you've got a Gmail account, you're familiar with some of this, Google Docs, Google Sheets, that kind of thing. But G Suite is the paid version. And the thing about it is it's very economical. It's only $6 to $12 a month per user. And you just get so much more with that. Plus the added benefit of making everything HIPAA secure and HIPAA compliant. And the course goes into that of explaining how all that works. And so anyway, all that to say is take advantage of the fact that the course is half price during the month of April. Again, use the coupon code Spring 2020 when you check out. Also, the other course that I've got available there is the Money Matters and Private Practice course that I teamed up with Julie Harris from Green Oak Accounting, and that goes into teaching you the whole financial side of private practice. Again, something that's important for all of us to learn. So, and know about in private practice. So got those out there. And again, if you'll go to practiceoftherapy.com, just click on the online courses button and that'll get you where you need to be to take advantage of all of that. So, again, I'm so happy to have my friend John Clark with me and get you to listen in on the conversation we had. It was really more of an open-ended conversation to some degree, but we talk about a lot of different things that I think you'll find interesting, just about therapy, and we'll talk about private practices, but most importantly, the importance of knowing your why, which again, that's a theme you've heard from me before, but it's good to hear it from John as well. So particularly during these times. So without further ado, here is my friend, John Clark. Well, hello everyone, and welcome again to the Practice of Therapy podcast. And I'm so thrilled to have with me today John Clark from the Private Practice Workshop podcast. And John and I have really been able to kind of reconnect through this whole thing that's going on here in April. We said we weren't going to talk too much about it, but it's real, the COVID-19 crisis. And hopefully by the time this episode comes out, we'll be getting into the tail end of it and life will somehow or another be kind of normal again. But welcome, John.
Thanks for having me, Gordon.
Yeah. So, John, as I really start with everyone, tell folks a little bit about your story and how you've landed where you've landed and what you do now.
Yeah, sure. I'll give you like the short, medium version, but I grew up in Virginia, from Roanoke, Virginia, Southwest Virginia. It's not too far from where you're from, which is probably why we're kindred spirits. Some sort of Southern gentleman.
Yes.
I lost most of my accent when I moved out to California to be with my now wife, who's from San Francisco. So spent all my life in Virginia until I finished graduate school and then went out to San Francisco to be with her, started my first practice there. My roots really are in agency work, nonprofits, worked with teenagers in the foster care system for a long time, juvenile justice system. I really love that work. That kind of social justice piece is really a big part of how I got here. I just found that I also really liked the business of building a practice when I got to San Francisco and was building in what remains a difficult climate, or a competitive climate, I should say. And what's funny about that is I was just on the phone yesterday with someone in Seattle, and they said, well, as you know, it's a very saturated market up here. There's too many therapists. And I said, what's interesting about that? We had that same problem in San Francisco. But what's also interesting is that whenever there's a lot of therapists, guess what that also means? There's a lot of clients.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and people, I think it helps kind of get rid of the stigma to some degree.
So
Yeah.
I started this business kind of loosely in 2013, just helping friends with their practices in San Francisco. And then I would charge them a beer, and then I would charge them a little more than a beer. And then fast forward to now, I do this full time. I sold my group practice. Well, I went back to the East Coast for a couple of years, built a group practice in Charlotte that I sold back in April 2019. And then I moved to Paris, France with my wife for her job, her startup job, and have been there ever since. So been really in France for a year and a half, although in this moment I'm back in California, and who knows where we're all going to be.
Right.
But here I am still doing this work from wherever I am.
Yeah. Well, John has always been really an inspiration to me. I follow him and love the work that he does, and just in one of the things I've gotten to know about John is that we have so many things where there's just so many parallels with what we're doing, and John brings a lot of wisdom and a lot of insight and compassion to what he does. I knew I had to have John back on here. So one of the things that we were talking, and what's funny is I just recorded on John's podcast, so you'll get to hear me on the Private Practice Workshop podcast, which is a great podcast. I listen to it pretty much every week. One of the things that we were talking about is just something about mindset and just about, knowing your why and knowing your purpose, really thinking about the direction you want to go in your practice. So, John, one of the things that you had mentioned on your podcast, and if you don't mind, I'll get you to repeat it, is just talking about the difference between having a mission and having a vision.
Yeah, of course.
In your practice, yeah.
Of course.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and what's interesting is, I see a lot of therapists creating what I call an accidental business, or doing kind of like accidental marketing or accidental branding. I've used those lightheartedly when therapists are just kind of stringing things along without real purpose or thought. And so my brand and even my tagline, one of my taglines is "Business Made Human." And I didn't create that. It was a few years ago when I was doing kind of a rebrand or a brand refresh that I was working with these branding experts and designers, and they were asking me, "Who are you? How are you different? What makes you different from other private practice, experts and whatnot?" And I just talked about how I think the tactics, the strategies, the SEO, the scaling, everything that goes into building a practice is one piece of it, but we often forget the human part. And also what I find in my Business Made Human mastermind groups is that most of the time when therapists are not achieving what they want to achieve, it has to do with something internal versus external, because let's face it, a lot of our answers are out there in Google somewhere if we just go look for them. Mm-hmm. The parallel is, as a therapist, when you have a client for 9.5 months of weekly therapy, they're still banging their head against the wall, right? Or they're still, they are having a hard time leaving a relationship or changing behavior, right? Or going after a job they keep saying they're going to go after, or having a difficult conversation with a family member, right? I see some of, our therapist challenges as very similar, right? In terms of why they haven't done the next thing yet.
Right.
And sometimes that comes down to either a mindset block, feelings of worth, or issues around worth, issues around power or money, or what would it mean if I made more money, or became different that way, or they really lack a compass, right? And that's how we get to talking about things like mission, vision, values, crafting that stuff, even just on a loose piece of paper right now, because people don't understand that that's how unofficial this stuff can be, to just start there and put something on paper, because these elements of your business can and should evolve with you, because it changes all the time. My vision for my business changes all the time. The mission stays pretty stable because it kind of needs to, for a business. But the vision as to how I'm going to get there, right? The values that are important to me and to my team and a company that helps therapists are pretty stable, right? Mm-hmm. But we have to just try. We have to try to put some of this stuff down. So I have basically 6 steps to what I call building a business made human. I can go through them loosely if you'd like.
Sure, great. That'd be great. Yeah.
Step one is start with why. So really crafting what I would say is your purpose statement. So a lot of times, and there's a therapist recently I've mentioned this, who was really struggling with motivation. I don't know what to focus on. When I get up in the morning, I don't feel like working on my practice. On one hand, you can address the behavior, right? And go, well, you need to wake up earlier, or, you need to use Trello or whatever it is. It's kind of like addressing the behavior or the symptom versus the root. The question for him is really, why do any of this in the first place? Why does this matter? What will happen if you don't do this and work on your business and get more clients for your practice, right? Or hit that income goal. And so you do have to kind of start with why, your purpose statement, right? I know for my own purpose statement is really to reduce suffering in the world. That's kind of my personal, purpose statement, always has been. How I do that has shifted over the years. At first, it was being a therapist, seeing 20 clients a week in San Francisco, doing agency work, etc. Now, part of my vision for how I accomplish that is through helping therapists run a better business. I help reduce suffering in the world by doing that, both in terms of the therapist's ability to manage, to build a great business that they love, that feeds their life rather than takes away from it. And that by way of doing that also helps their clients. So there's this trickle down effect that I started to realize the more I do this, and the more my own business coach really pushed me to say this stuff out loud, which is scary.
Right. Yeah. And I think one of the things that it brings to mind for me is that I think what happens is we can tend to get overly preoccupied with how we're going to do something,
exactly,
but not really thinking much about why. And you're exactly right. You have to start with why before you do any of it.
The why is also going to be your fuel source. So especially on those days where it's really hard to get out of bed in the morning, where, well, we're in a crisis like we're in right now, you have to have enough fuel in the tank to really make this worth it. Because I'll be honest, there are more risks associated with being a business owner than being an employee. There's more risks. There's more stress. You're going to take work home more than often. You're liable to different things that you're not as liable for if you're the employee of a company. So for me, it has to be worth it. Your why has to keep that scale tipped in one direction of like, I'm so fired up about my purpose, right? That the bumps in the road are worth it. The risk, the liability, the dips in income, the spikes in income, right? You know what I mean? Dealing with competition, all these things that we have to deal with, dealing with criticisms, whatever, crises within my practice, that it all has to be worth it. Because if at some point it's not, your practice is going to start going downhill. Right. And you may start going to a dark place or a place of depression.
Right. Right. Yeah. When it gets that overwhelming. Yeah.
So I think many therapists feel like I was born to do this, right? I was born to help people. I've always been a good listener, right? I'm naturally empathic. Take that one step further. And if you're listening right now, pull out that piece of paper and write down. So then why private practice, right? So if your purpose in life is to help people, then why private practice, right?
Yeah.
Is it the most effective place for you to help people? Or do you have other, ideas behind your purpose, whether it's like owning my schedule or my time or hitting a certain income goal so that I can do X, Y, and Z in my life. So keep following it down, right? And really try to get honest with yourself and revisit this often. So.
Right. I remember several years ago, I was working with a business consultant, and she was helping me. I mean, I had gone in to talk with her, and it was at that phase when I was building my practice where I was really trying to decide whether to take my practice and build a nonprofit agency with it, or just maintain a solo practice or to go into group practice. And she really helped me hone in on what sort of lifestyle that I wanted to create for myself. I gave her a figure, of, I'd like to make X amount of money. And she really pushed me to say, okay, why that amount, and why do any of this? Why not just keep seeing clients like you're seeing them in a in a solo practice, and you could make that much money, but why go these other directions? And so
Exactly.
that really, really helped me kind of, at that time, I didn't know that I would start the practice of therapy or any of that. But once I had clarity about, okay, this is where I want to end up, um, the rest of it kind of fell in place.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
and this is also why it's so important to work with a business coach or consultant or someone who can help you look at this stuff, right? Because people often
Mm-hmm.
go, and I ask therapists this as part of our screening process if they're joining Fully Booked or Business Made Human, my two programs, is what's your income goal and why, right? In other words, how would that money actually change your life? Or would it, right? And how'd you come up with that number? Because a lot of times it's just pretty random, or it's what I
Mm-hmm.
heard some other therapist is making, or it's just more. I
Right.
just want to make
Right.
more.
Yeah. Yeah. And,
Just
and
go
so
deeper than that.
yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
that's number one. Number two is establish that endpoint. So, like you're saying, basically your mission statement. Any good, any trip you're going to take, you need to know the endpoint, right? Otherwise, you're not going to know where to turn, how fast to go.
Mm-hmm.
That endpoint is really your mission statement. You should think big. You should think of the ripple effects of your work. So a lot of times therapists go, well, my mission statement is, be a I do CBT and DBT for teens and adolescents with anxiety or whatever. That's just really what you do. That's how you kind of actualize your vision, right?
Mm-hmm.
Your mission statement is really this high level impact that your business could have on the world. I mentioned this on my podcast, but it's the best
Mm-hmm.
mission statement I've heard is this company, Appalachia Service Project, that I've worked with for years. And their mission statement is to eradicate all substandard housing in Central Appalachia. It sounds like an impossible goal because it probably is, and that's kind of the point. It's
Mm-hmm.
such a big goal, and it's so infused into the culture of that company that everyone is constantly fired up by it because it's so big, right? It's also
Right.
so clear, right? That if ASP has accomplished their mission at the end of the day, meaning, let's say you've accomplished your mission and you can close up shop. Well, how
Yeah.
would you know? How would you know, right?
Right. Right.
Huge mission for them, right? Now,
Yeah.
how they get there is where we start to talk about number three, your vision statement, really your vision, how you're going to get there, how you're going to eradicate all that substandard housing. So for
Mm-hmm.
ASP, it's hosting hundreds of volunteers over 30 counties throughout Central Appalachia, repairing 1,000 homes every summer, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whatever it is. So then you start to really sketch out how we're going to get there. And this part is kind of where I think therapists probably spend the most time thinking, and maybe even overanalyzing, right? Kind of like, how am I going to get there? What should my website say? What should I do Google ads or not? Should I
Mm-hmm.
sublease my office or not? And we face a tremendous amount of decisions, big and small, as
Mm-hmm.
business owners and therapists. And these things I'm talking through right now they're guiding principles to help you make those decisions, right?
Right. Right.
Otherwise, it's going to feel like every decision is huge. I'm just kind of making it up, right? I'm just
Mm-hmm.
kind of dealing with a very limited set of information
Right.
versus having some of this stuff in place.
Yeah. If you don't know where you're going, then any place will do.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So.
The way I do my vision, and this is I stole this unabashedly from my friend Kelly Higdon, who I don't know if she stole it from someone, but she uses this kind of 4 quadrants tool. So if you take a piece of paper, put it in 4 quadrants, the 4 quadrants starting at top left and going clockwise would be 5 years, 1 year, and then on the bottom it's this week and the next 1 to 3 months. So in that 5 years, you need to start to sketch out where you need to be as part of your vision. And I put everything in there from like, some of my 1 year goals. And I look at my 4 quadrants every day when I log in for work to try to understand what the heck am I doing today? What is my job here again?
Right. Yeah.
But in my 1 year goals in 2019, one was to practice French every day and to be fluent in French in a year. It doesn't have anything to do with my business, but it does, in that I needed to carve out that time and money to invest in learning French, for that year. Now I have other things on there too, in terms of I need X amount of fully booked students, X amount of business made human students. We're going to put out X amount of videos this year on YouTube. I'm going to make X amount of money. Those things are on there as well, right? But the lifestyle part is really infused into my vision. So I have a bunch of other things on there too that are really lifestyle oriented.
Right. I remember I still use that as well. I remember John was part of a mastermind group I was involved with Joe Santa a few years ago, and I learned that from John, the 4 quadrants, and I still use that to this day. And it's a wonderful tool as far as helping you really kind of think about, how to connect all the dots.
Yeah. The other thing it helps you do is, and again, I take no credit for this tool, is it helps you reverse engineer, your big tasks. So if I want to get, 50 fully booked students in this launch, I can start to work my way backwards and go, then what do I need to do in these next 1 to 3 months to, let's say, build my email list for that? What do I need to do this week to create, maybe create more lead magnets to build my email list? So it helps me really trace back, like, what actions I'm taking today and what they should lead to, in a year, 5 years from now. And that's a really powerful, thing to do.
Yeah.
So that's kind of your vision. Again, the vision is really how you're going to get there, how you're going to accomplish the mission.
Right.
This is where the rubber really hits the road, right?
Yeah.
Number 4 is we establish company values, or kind of your brand values. This is really just kind of like what you believe in order to help make decisions, right? And even if you're a solo practitioner, I think I highly recommend doing this. My wife worked at Facebook when we first lived in California, and they have really good company culture, some of the best in the world, some of the strongest company values. All the employees can recite the values like by heart because they learn them in onboarding and they're infused into the culture.
Wow.
And they're constantly behaving based on those values. One value is be bold and take action, or take risks. Be bold and take risks, something like that. So if a team is sitting there, or even a single employee is sitting there and going, this seems kind of risky. I don't know if I should try this new product or, pitch this new thing to my team. Well, they think about the values of the company. That's just one of them. Another value is transparency. So they also value transparency in their interactions with each other, with their managers, right? Things like that. So you think about basically, like, what do we believe in this practice, in this business? And let's use those as really a filtering device for making decisions.
Right. It's really, I think of it like, it's almost like a template of what you aspire to be. And it's, then you do make sure that all the things that you're doing lives into that. Yeah.
I think there's like in motivational interviewing, there's like a deck of cards you can get and use with clients that help them identify their values. You just spread these cards out on the floor and you help them pick, 6 values or something like that. It can be that simple. You can probably Google that set of cards and use it.
Sure.
Yourself for business.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's all of this, I think comes back to what we had talked about earlier, was just creating the kind of practice that you want to have for yourself. And I think if you really, really put some thought into that, and like John said, get out a piece of paper and start writing this stuff down. Because that's where you're gonna get clarity. That's where you're gonna be able to kind of look at the big picture of things.
Yeah. Even if after today, your practice is just a little less accidental, that's a real win.
Yes.
And when I started doing business in 2013, I wasn't doing any of this stuff. Most of my stuff was accidental, right? I was focused for 9 months on just my website, right? And getting it to rank on Google. I wasn't focused on anything else, any of this other stuff. So it always feels like extra, like looping back around, or like, I've already been in business for 7 years. Why would I do this stuff now?
Right.
But it's never too late to do it or start sketching it out. And it really helps. It also helps if you have any employee or team member of any kind, even a contractor, to have this stuff sketched out somewhere, or if you have clinicians as part of your onboarding process, show them this stuff. You're the only one that can create it and who's going to create it. So sketch it out, make it official enough, put your pretty brand colors on it, your logo on it, and boom, it's official.
Right. Yeah, that's a great problem. I know I've done that with my team, with my group, and we every year now for the last 2 or 3 years, as we've done just a staff retreat at the beginning of the year, and again talk about these things, which is just time well spent.
It's a great time to
Yeah.
infuse some of this stuff and just to be, be the kind of leader you want to be.
Right. Well, John, I want to be respectful of your time, and I want you also to be able to for you to tell folks more about Business Made Human, and
of course,
the courses you've got available and that sort of thing. Yeah.
I'll say the last two, numbers 5 and 6, really quick, and then we'll do it.
Okay. Thanks for stopping me on that. Yeah.
These next two are not too hard to do, but 5 is just set your ideal income. 6 is set your ideal schedule around your ideal income. So really just get in there, create, set that income target, make it sure it's based on something and what you actually need in one and how you're going to use that money. And then you kind of reverse engineer that around your schedule and go, okay, like, again, if I want to make 130 grand, what kind of schedule do I need, right? Or if I'm seeing 20 clients, what should that fee be in order to hit that 130 grand?
Yeah.
And is that doable? Is that 35 clients a week? Is that 15 clients a week? So that's the last part, right? Is really start sketching out your days, weeks, months, and years, and make sure when you're looking at your calendar, that it looks right to you. It looks good. It looks like, yes, this is worth it. This is why I did this in the first place and became this, a business owner.
Yeah. It's and that's the same kind of technique that I espouse as well, is that you work backwards. You start with okay, here's the end point. Okay, now working backwards from that, how do I get there?
Exactly.
Yeah. So
those are the six steps.
Right.
So if it's still April, when this is out, the doors to both my programs right now, they just open once a year. Fully booked is a 5-step system for getting new clients consistently. It's the same method I used in 2013 in San Francisco. Used it again in North Carolina to build my group practice. We've had over 170 therapists around the world go through this program with really, really good results to set up systems to get clients consistently online for their practice. So that's fully booked. The doors are open now. We got some really amazing bonuses right now too for people depending on when they sign up. The second program is Business Made Human. It's my mastermind community that is all about the stuff I just talked about. It's a weekly mastermind. You meet in a small group with me every single week for an hour. We also include a live event. We just did our first live event in Nashville, Tennessee, which was a real success and really enriching to be in 3D for a change.
Right.
So that's all about really crafting that business and making it fit into your life. It's also about building other income streams, online courses, membership sites. I teach a lot of that stuff in those groups. So those are my 2 programs. It's pretty simple. And if you're interested at all, head to privatepracticeworkshop.com, or maybe I can shoot you some links to throw into the show notes here.
Yes, absolutely.
That's it. You can follow along at Private Practice Workshop Podcast, wherever you listen. We're also on YouTube, Private Practice Workshop. We've got a great following there that's really growing. And let me know how you're doing. I always love to connect with new people.
Right. And John is a great one to connect with. He's just got a wealth of knowledge, and I'm real thankful that we've been able to reconnect. It's been a good journey here, and and so be sure and check out Private Practice Workshop, like John mentioned, and subscribe to his podcast too, like you do this one, and be sure to take a listen, because I think it's great to get the multiple perspectives, and I don't know it all, and I like for other people to learn from new folks as well. So, John, thanks for joining me for this episode, and it's going to be a great one. Yeah,
absolutely. Thanks again for having me. See you soon.
Well, folks, I hope you enjoyed hearing from John, and be sure to check out his website and also his podcast, Private Practice Workshop, and also be sure to check out the course that he's got open right now, and also the mastermind group that he's got open right now. I think if you really want to dive in deep, John's a good one to do it with, and I've just really enjoyed getting reconnecting with John during this period and just really listening to his wisdom. And I hope that this podcast episode has been helpful for you. Again, you'll find links to John's materials and John's things in the show notes below, or the show summary, wherever you might be listening to the podcast. Also, be sure and check out our sponsor, as always, TherapyNotes, therapynotes.com. They are the #1 electronic health record system for mental health providers. And just got an email from them today that they're coming out with some really cool stuff. They've got a lot of new stuff coming down the pike. And one of those being is they're adding on the ability to do telehealth right through their portal. So I'm excited about that. And I think, as for most of us, we've got that on our brains and on our minds here lately, particularly having to make that shift to doing online counseling. The other thing is just with TherapyNotes, when you go to check them out, go to therapynotes.com. And if you'll use the coupon code just simply Gordon, Gordon, you can get 2 months of their services free. So be sure to check them out. The other thing, and just a reminder, take advantage of the course discount that I'm offering this month. Is just really kind of my small way of kind of giving back to those of you out there that are wanting to learn new stuff, wanting to learn how to make your practices better. And you can go to practiceoftherapy.com and then click on the link there at the top, the button for online courses. And when you go to enroll in the course, if you'll use the coupon code, just simply Spring 2020, you can get your course at half off during the month of April. And so looking forward to you hearing from some future guests here. I've got some great ones lined up. Know one of them that's coming up is my friend, again, another person that you've heard from on this podcast a few times before, and that's Rob Reinhart from Tame Your Practices coming up. And we're going to be talking, I know that we've already kind of discussed this, we're going to be talking about contingency plans in your practice, thinking about things like what would happen to my practice if something were to happen to me. Big question. And I think that's maybe been on the back of our minds or in the front of our minds here lately with the whole crisis we're in. So anyway, that you've got that to look forward to as well. Well, folks, I hope you will stay well, stay healthy during this time. Hopefully we're going to be seeing this come to an end and or at least quickly fizzle away is what my hope is as we move forward with this. Don't take any chances. Be good to yourself. Stay healthy. Continue to do the social distancing and washing your hands. And you don't need to hear it from me. You've heard it enough. So, but we will get through this. This is just a season. And hopefully you're learning a lot about yourself and about your practices and what the resiliency that we all have within us. I hope that's coming through for you in your practice. So take care, folks. And we'll talk with you next week. Take care. Been listening to the Practice of Therapy podcast with Gordon Brewer. Please visit us at practiceoftherapy.com for more information, resources, and tools to help you in starting, building, and growing your private practice. And if you haven't done so already, please sign up to receive the free private practice startup guide at practiceoftherapy.com. The information in this podcast is intended to be accurate and authoritative concerning the subject matter covered. It is given with the understanding that neither the hosts, guests, or producers are rendering legal, accounting, or clinical advice. If you need a professional, you should find the right person for that.